Hello there, good evening and welcome to BBC Newsline. A second man has been charged this evening with the murder of Constable Stephen Carroll in Craigavon a fortnight ago. The 37-year-old will appear in court in the morning. Earlier today, a 17-year-old was in court charged with the policeman's murder. BBC Newsline's Julian O'Neill was in Lisburn Courthouse.
This is the moment the teenager was taken into custody, led away in forensic overalls the day after Constable Carroll's murder, a murder he's now alleged to have been involved in. Today, heightened security was in place at Lisburn Courthouse, with extra police posted outside and inside the building. The accused was driven in from Antrim Police Station for what was a brief hearing just before 11 o'clock. He cannot be identified because of his age.
The 17-year-old was dressed in grey t-shirt and blue jeans and did not speak during what was a 5-minute hearing. He stood in court surrounded by 5 prison officers, his arms folded in front of him as the 4 charges were read out.
48-year-old Stephen Carroll was murdered in Craigavon 2 weeks ago as he answered a call out. 2 shots were fired at his unmarked police car. One of them struck his head. As well as murder, the 17-year-old faces 3 other charges: possession of an AK rifle and 26 bullets, collecting information useful to terrorists, and belonging to a proscribed organisation identified on the charge sheet as the Continuity IRA. The court was told the teenager has been in police custody for the past 13 days. His lawyer asked a detective if it was correct to state he had made no admissions during that time. The officer replied the accused had refused to speak throughout interviews. The defence lawyer said the accused would be denying all charges against him.
The 17-year-old was remanded in custody until the 3rd of April. His next appearance before Craigavon Magistrates Court will be made via video link. His solicitor told the court that no application for bail would be made at this stage. Julian O'Neill, BBC Newsline, Lisburn Magistrates Court.
A second person has been charged with murdering Constable Stephen Carroll 2 weeks ago. The accused is a former Sinn Fein councillor, Brendan McConville. BBC Newsline's Julian O'Neill was in the court.
Police set up a checkpoint on the approach to Lisburn Courthouse. For the second day running, security here was stepped up for the appearance of a murder accused. A Land Rover led the way, Brendan McConville, a backseat passenger in a police jeep. As well as murder, the 37-year-old is charged with possession of an assault rifle and 26 rounds of ammunition on the day of the killing.
Brendan McConville did not speak during what was the briefest of court appearances. He stood handcuffed in the dock throughout, surrounded by half a dozen police officers. When he came into court, he nodded in the direction of 2 men in the public gallery.
McConville, who is unemployed and from Glenholm Avenue in Lurgan, has been in custody from the day after Stephen Carroll was killed by a shot to the head in Craigavon. The accused solicitor said in court that his client denies the shooting. Brendan McConville was remanded in custody to reappear in court next week. Yesterday, a 17-year-old faced the same murder charge, which he denies. Brendan McConville served as a Sinn Fein councillor in Craigavon from 1993 until 1997, when, according to the party, he was then expelled. Julian O'Neill, BBC Newsline, Lisburn Magistrates Court.
And within the past hour, a 21-year-old man has been charged with withholding information on Constable Carroll's murder. He's expected in court in the morning.
A former Sinn Fein councillor has appeared at Lisburn Magistrates Court accused of the murder of Constable Stephen Carroll. The officer was shot dead as he answered an emergency call in Craigavon earlier this month. Brendan McConville is the second person to be charged with the killing. Jane Lockery reports.
Sniffer dogs were deployed in the court grounds this morning, searching for any explosive devices that may have been planted there. Elsewhere, riot police stood guard, and there were security checks in the city as Brendan McConville, who's unemployed and from Glenholm Avenue in Lurgan, arrived at Lisburn Magistrates Court. The 37-year-old, who served as a Sinn Fein councillor on Craigavon Borough Council between 1993 and 1997, before leaving the party, was handcuffed and surrounded by police officers as the 2 charges against him were read out. He's accused of murdering 48-year-old Constable Stephen Carroll, who was shot dead as he answered an emergency call in Craigavon on March the 9th. Brendan McConville is also charged with possessing an AKM assault rifle and 26 rounds of ammunition. A detective inspector told the court he believed he could connect him to the charges. When asked by Brendan McConville's defence solicitor if it was correct that he denied shooting Constable Carroll, the officer replied, "That is correct." Brendan McConville waved to friends in the courtroom as he was led from the dock. He was remanded in custody until his next court appearance by video link on April the 3rd. Brendan McConville is the second person to be charged with the murder. Yesterday, a 17-year-old youth was remanded in custody after appearing in the same court accused of killing Constable Carroll. Jane Mockery, UTV Live, Lisburn Magistrates Court.
And some news just in. Within the past half hour, a 21-year-old man has been charged with withholding information. He was arrested this afternoon in relation to the murder of Constable Carroll. He's expected to appear before Lisburn magistrates in the morning.
Declan McGlinchey, the son of the former INLA terrorist Dominic McGlinchey, will appear in court in Magherafelt next week accused of bomb-making offences. The 32-year-old, pictured here at a previous court appearance in Londonderry, faces 4 charges connected to the discovery of a bomb in Balaki in July 2006. His barrister told Magherafelt Magistrates Court today that discussions were continuing with scientific experts about forensic evidence in the case. A third man has been in court and remanded in custody, charged in connection with the murder of Constable Stephen Carroll in Craigavon. Republican Sinn Fein has described his murder and those of the 2 soldiers, Mark Quincy and Patrick Azimkar, as an act of war. Viewers are warned that part of Niall Donnelly's report contains flash photography.
For the 3rd day in a row, there was tight security at Lisburn Courthouse as a third man was in the dock charged in connection with the murder of Constable Stephen Carroll in Craigavon. The 21-year-old, who can't be named for legal reasons, is charged with withholding information about the shooting. He sat impassively through the short hearing. A court order means further details about it cannot be published, nor can the reason for the defendant's identity being withheld. Earlier at a news conference in West Belfast, Republican Sinn Fein described the murders of Constable Carroll and sappers Mark Quincy and Patrick Azimkar at Masserine Barracks in Antrim as an act of war. The organisation defended the right of Republicans to use force.
It's regrettable that anyone has to lose their life, but the reality is that when you have occupation within a country, there is invariably resistance, including armed resistance. And we have always upheld the right of the Irish people to use any level of controlled and disciplined force to drive the British out of Ireland. We make no apology for that. Ireland's no different from any other country in the world. It has a right to defend itself and its sovereignty. As I say, it's regrettable that loss of life occurs, but it's sadly an inevitable fact.
Richard Walsh said Gerry Adams and Martin McGuinness were guilty of the most severe treachery to this country for many years. Meanwhile, traditional Unionist MEP Jim Allister says many will have difficulties with yesterday's High Court decision, which meant police did not have the automatic right to hold suspects for up to 28 days.
I certainly think many people in Northern Ireland who will find it very difficult to understand how, when the police required to hold these people till forensic reports come back on mobile phones and on a car, that they are released on a technicality. I don't think that's serving the wider general interest of justice in the community.
Jim Allister says Parliament may need to look at the whole issue again. Niall Donnelly, UTV Live.